there's a live look at the Big Ten tournament champion Ohio State Buckeyes. They know they're headed west. They just don't know who the opponent is right now. So let's bring it to you. The breakdown in the West region. We've already told you the top seed in the West, the Cincinnati Bearcats, coached by Bob Huggins at 30-3, coming off the Conference USA Tournament Championship. They'll take on the 16th seed Terriers of Boston University. That is a Friday game in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Boston University, the America East Conference Tournament winner. The number 8 seed, the Bruins of UCLA at 19-11. UCLA's 38th trip to the tournament. They'll meet the number 9 seed Rebels of Ole Miss at 20-10. Coach Rod Barnes, the first to lead the Rebels to 3 NCAA tournaments. That's a Friday game in Pittsburgh as well. The number 5 seed in the West, the Hurricanes of Miami, coached by Perry Clark. Miami makes its 4th trip to the tournament in the last 5 years. They will meet the number 12 seed Tigers of Missouri, coached by Quinn Snyder. That is a Thursday game in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The number 4 seed in the West, they're the Ohio State Buckeyes, coached by Jim O'Brien. And who will they play? The 13th seed Wildcats of Davidson, the Southern Conference Tournament Championship. And I'd say the Buckeyes are extremely pleased about what they've done today and where they're headed in the tournament. So continuing in the West now, the number 2 seed out West. Today's winner of the Big 12 tournament, Oklahoma. The Sooners, coached by Kelvin Sampson, make their 8th straight tournament appearance. They will meet the 15th seed Illinois Chicago Flames at 20-13. That's a Friday game in Dallas, Texas. The number 7 seed in the West, the Musketeers of Xavier. Xavier won the Atlantic 10 Conference Tournament, 25-5. They'll meet the 10th seed Warriors of Hawaii. Hawaii at 27-5. That's a Friday game in Dallas. The number 3 seed out West, the Wildcats of Arizona. A Final Four team last season, winner of the Pac-10 tournament, and they'll play the 14th seed in the West, Santa Barbara's Gauchos. That's a Thursday game in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the last pairing, the number 6 seed, the Bulldogs of Gonzaga, the West Coast Conference Tournament champion, and they'll face the number 11 seed Cowboys of Wyoming. That's a Thursday game in Albuquerque, and at Gonzaga, Coach Mark Pugh and the rest of the crew may be a little bit upset about the seating and the location. We will see. Meanwhile, let's take you back out to Jim and Billy in Indianapolis. Guys.
All right, Greg, I think we just found the most motivated team in the tournament. Gonzaga feels snubbed at a 6, and they should feel that.
I think so, too, Jim. And you could tell by the reaction right there. That club was looking at maybe a 3 seed and drop all the way back to a 6. And they did everything that was asked of them this year.
Yeah, they're saying we've got to show them again. We're Cinderella again. This year we proved we belong with the Giants. Let's go back through the West. You say the West is the most difficult of the 4. The West is the best. Cincinnati against Boston University. The Bearcats could be looking at in the second game. UCLA or Ole Miss. You've seen UCLA knock off Kansas this year when it was number 1. Saw them win at Stanford. I mean, this is a UCLA team that could really go all the way to the Final Four. What do you expect here?
Jim, when they're playing their best, they're a 1 or 2 seed. When they're playing their worst, they're somewhere on a 12 or 13 seed. So they're right where they ought to be at an 8 and 9. A very difficult assignment in Ole Miss, but UCLA is the kind of team, as we have seen, playing against the likes of Kansas, that can beat anybody in the country when they're rolling.
Obviously, Missouri, one of the last teams in, and at large 12 seed going against Miami. And Ohio State also, I think, has reason to perhaps complain here. They win the Big Ten championship, and they don't get any kind of regional preference. They go all the way to Albuquerque. And at the bottom of the bracket, Billy, Oklahoma wins today against Kansas, but just stays on the 2 line.
Well, you know, I thought that if they were to win that game, it would jump up to a number 1. But what it does do, Conference USA champion, Big 12 champion, Pac-10 champion, and Big Ten champion, all in the same bracket.
Hawaii against Xavier. Any thoughts on that one?
Really have no call on that other than Hawaii has played extremely well, even when they came mainland in the past.
Arizona against Santa Barbara, and again, Gonzaga as a 6. I think most have forecast for Gonzaga to be maybe like a 3 seed.
A 3 or a 4 at the least.
All right, Billy, let's go through the Sweet 16 seeds now, the top 4 seeds in each region. This is how you usually determine the difficulty. You try to figure out which one's the hardest, and you say the West is the best, and which one would be second?
Well, they have 2 number 1 seeds, in my opinion, right there. And then I'd jump over to the East, to Maryland, Connecticut. Anybody who saw that game last night, one of the great Big Ten Big East championships I've ever seen. Georgia, a team that beat Florida twice this year in Kentucky. I think the East would come in second.
All right, and Duke over there in the South is a 1 with Alabama, Pittsburgh, and USC. What stands out here? What does not look like it's in sync with your 16?
Well, I'll tell you one thing right now, the Duke-USC matchup, we had that last year in an Eastern Regional Final.
And that could be meeting in the Sweet 16 round. The Georgia thing, Clark pointed it out earlier. That might be a little higher than most had figured.
Well, yeah, I would say Georgia a little higher, Gonzaga a lot lower than what we had anticipated.
There had been so much talk, Billy, about trying to find that fourth #1 seed. Duke, Maryland, and Kansas were certainly locks, but Cincinnati, with the way it played in its tournament, and Oklahoma, with its play through the Big 12, again, bolsters that West bracket.
Well, you can see that the committee stayed pretty consistent. They felt that the last game of a conference tournament didn't necessarily make any difference between another top game throughout the course of the year, and that may be the case for an Ohio State at 4 and an Oklahoma at 2.
Billy, always so much talk about the top 6 conferences. They take 33 spots in the tournament, led by the Big East, Big 12, Pac-10, SEC, all with 6 each.
The ACC top-heavy and ends up with just 4.
Bubbles burst here in the last few minutes. A group like Utah State and Butler right here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, Butler really has to be hurting. They did everything that was called upon for them, and I think when you think about Ball State, and we go back to the beginning of the year, back-to-back wins when they were so strong out in Hawaii, beating Kansas and UCLA, back-to-back nights, and giving Duke a good game. But here we are in March, and everything changes.
Virginia at 17-11, you felt they would be left out.
Well, I really did, but I would like to know what would have happened had they won that Michigan State game that was canceled on the ice, and they got no credit for that whatsoever in their win column, assuming that they would have gone on to win that. But they played so poorly down the stretch that you can't blame the committee for that one.
All right, Billy, and finally, the last teams in at larges with the worst seeds. It's where you figure out the ones that were really riding that bubble all weekend. Missouri, Tulsa, Utah, Boston College, Southern Illinois, and Wyoming.
Well, Missouri with a good showing probably got them in the good showing even though they lost against Kansas. That was very impressive. Rick Majerus' team there at a 12, I think would be a very dangerous 12 seed. Boston College, you always love teams with good backcourts in the NCAA tournament, and that would spell well for them.
All right, Billy, the field is set, and Greg, I think my partner here has a few questions here in a few minutes. Let's send it back to you in New York.
I think we have a bunch of questions, Jim. Billy, thank you much. Up next, a little insight on the selection committee's thought processes. We talk with the committee's chair, Lee Fowler. We will also get reactions from coaches Roy Williams of Kansas, Gary Williams of Maryland, Bob Huggins of Cincinnati, each awarded a #1 seed. And we continue in just a moment.